I'm Carrie Stinson, and my journey through life has been quite an adventure. For over 20 years, I played Barney the Dinosaur on tour and 7 seasons of the hugely popular TV show Barney and Friends. Now my journey is to bring together friends and guests from all over the entertainment world for inspiring and at times amusing behind-the-scenes conversation. I'm Carrie Stinson, and this is Purple Roads.
Hey Carrie, this is Michael Ruffins. I am a huge Barney fan, and I always will be. I have 3 questions to ask about Purple Roads. Number 1, does Purple Roads just involve kids' entertainment? 2, what days do you tape Purple Roads? And 3, how long can the episodes be?
Welcome, Purple Roads fans, to another episode. Today we've got Carly Ciarrocchi on. I'm so excited to have her on this episode. We had a little problem last week, but we've got her back today. Before we get to Carly, I had asked about sending your questions. And Michael Ruffins has got 3 for us today, which is this just a kids' entertainment show? Yeah, we get into a lot of kids' entertainment. We get into the behind the scenes and hear a lot of inspiring stories from people that were involved in it. But we also get to pop culture as well, some people that are in different areas of that. Second question, when do we shoot? Well, we usually shoot on Mondays. Right now, obviously, because of what's going on and we're staying at home. We're shooting whenever we can get a hold of some people, but usually it's Monday. We show up at the studio around noon, and we film at 1 o'clock at Real News in Dallas, Texas. Number 3, how long is an episode? Well, this is a conversation, so we try to stay at about an hour, but we kind of go where the conversation goes. So sometimes it's a little bit longer, sometimes a little bit shorter, but somewhere in that hour range. Please keep sending the questions. Thank you, Michael, for that one. It was awesome. Send some more. I can't wait. And here we go. Here's Carly. Hello, Purple Roads fans. Welcome to another episode. So glad you're here. This is the show that was supposed to happen. This time it's actually happening. We've got Carly Ciarrocchi, host, writer, and creator. Welcome, and thanks for coming back.
Oh my gosh, no problem. We had a great chat before, so I'm happy to come back and hang out a little more.
Well, we're all sitting here at home and things kind of happen. We're all figuring it out, but we had a great time before, but this is going to be even better.
Even better. The other conversation wasn't meant to be heard.
That's right. That's right. So welcome to the show. You were on Sunny Side Up on Sprouts, and then the Big Fun Crafty Show. You were on Snug's house, and then you're actually doing your own show right now online during all of this called Tube Town.
Yes. Yeah, a couple of my shows, a couple of the Universal Kids shows are still running on Universal Kids right now. And I just wanted to do something on my own, just an offering for right now. And I have always, since the Sunny Side Up days, loved making people out of cardboard tubes. Like I was like aggressive about it on Sunny Side Up. I'd be like, here's what our tubes are doing today. Like I did it as often as I could because I thought it was so funny. But I've been doing every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. live out of my apartment, my studio in here. I make cardboard tubes into people, and then we play with them in Tube Town. There's always a different celebration. So this past weekend, it was the Tube Town surfing contest. So we made a pro surfer. And then the week before that, it was the day of the unveiling of the new Tube Town construction crane. And we made a construction crane operator, Dee Dee. So she operates the construction crane in Tube Town now. It's just hilarious and insane.
It's amazing when this all happened and everything that was going on and we were all stuck in our homes. This interaction that we've now found, and the importance of interacting and just being able to laugh and smile and have some fun.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that when I was trying to figure out how to put this little Tube Town offering into the world, it was like, do I put it on YouTube? Do I put it on Instagram? Do I do Facebook? Like, where do I put it?
Right.
I knew I wanted it to be live, but it was also important to me that it was interactive. And so Facebook Live is a platform that allows me to interact with comments. So I can have families like help me create the tube person and help make decisions about how we're going to play when we get to Tube Town. And everybody is just like longing for connection right now.
Yes.
So and anything on like the kids media programming side of things that can offer that, I think is really useful. And it's something that we used to do on Sunny Side Up. We were a live preschool morning show with interactivity through our website, which is like funny to think about. it was only a couple years ago that show went off the air, but the idea of like asking families to go on their computer and type us a message that we'll then receive and then read on air, it's like a 30-minute process that we were always like so proud that like within 30 minutes your message can be on our show.
Right.
Where now things are like instantaneous. But it was really special to be able to offer that for so long to kids. And I said it in the other conversation, but I want to mention it again, how cool it is that you came on Sunny Side Up, even though it was before my time. We like just missed each other.
Yes, and I'm gonna put the picture up. I found the picture of Barney on the set with all the crew, the cast, and we talked about this before, but that set was so small. How that big purple dinosaur fit on there, I'm still not sure.
I feel like we had to like go beyond what the usual limits of our like shot were to accommodate you. Like when I look back at the pictures, which is so amazing. I remember coming to Sunny Side Up and seeing the guests that I had missed and seeing that I had missed you and being like, no, like I miss Barney, because I was obviously a kid that watched a lot of Barney. I loved watching the kids and playing in the world of make-believe. Like I watched a lot of Barney. So the fact that we can have this conversation now for the second time is amazing. It was our destiny to meet eventually.
Absolutely. And I got to see, that was such an amazing show because your studio was so small and all the things that you all did and that interaction was amazing. And then obviously Chica there. So you had a host and a puppet and sometimes a guest too. We're kind of skipping over this and we will go back, but what was it like for that? What was the challenge? I mean, you really had to be on your toes doing a show like that.
Yeah. And just to kind of explain Sunny Side Up for anybody who doesn't know, because it is one of those things where like, if you watched it, you get it. And if you don't, I feel like it's like, wait, I don't understand. A chicken puppet and it's live and what's going on. Right. So Sunny Side Up was a block of programming on Sprout that would air from 9 to noon every morning. And it featured a human host, a distinction that is important in our line of work, a human host with a chicken puppet sidekick. And the two of us would come on in between every show that aired on Sprout. So we'd start the day off, welcome to Sunny Side Up. This is what day it is. Here's the weather. We'd read some messages from kids. And then we'd kick it to the first episode of the day, which I actually feel like in my early days of Sprout, Barney was one of the first things that kids would watch in the morning. So it would go to an episode of Barney and then it would come back to Chica and Carly in the Sunshine Barn. And we'd say, okay, today on Barney, they were flying kites. So we're going to teach everybody how to make a kite out of stuff you can find around the house. So our segments were always somehow riffing on whatever the kids just saw in whatever episode was just on in the morning. So sometimes we would make a craft, sometimes we make a recipe. I wrote a lot of original music, so we'd sometimes just have a dance party or sing. And we also celebrated birthdays every day. So families would send in birthday cards and people would come up to me and be like, those birthday cards are fake, right? And I'd be like, no, they are not. Like, we would get so many huge, extravagant birthday cards, and we'd read messages that didn't come with cards too, just like pictures of kids on screens. But the show was live, so kids could send us messages throughout the day in addition to like birthday messages ahead of time. And it was a really, really special and unique show. And when it went away, it was partially because kids weren't watching live television anymore. So it didn't make sense to make it. It was on 7 days a week. There were 4 hosts and we would all rotate duties, and there were 4 puppeteers. So they would kind of like rotate us through because we'd write the show as a team every week. It kind of fell out of like necessity for it to be built like that. So they sunsetted Sunny Side Up and replaced it with Snug's House, which was a different format, different puppet, no longer live. But that's kind of the overview of Sunny Side Up. And I forget the question that you actually asked me.
Well, no, just the challenge. It's funny. The memories come through every time I get in having these conversations. I actually toured with some of your hosts and Chica on some events. We actually did Times Square. I'll post. There's pictures of me and Kelly and Barney in Times Square with Chica.
Oh my gosh!
I'll post some of that. But the question was the challenges of working on that show on that small set. And I mean, there was a lot going on. It didn't always look like it, but there was a lot going on for a host.
There was a lot going on, and doing live television is hard. I would wear an IFB in my ear, so like a little earpiece, so I could hear
Right.
the producer giving counts. So, you're talking to an audience that's not there. You're talking to a scene partner that does not have eyeballs that can blink back at you. And you're getting like number counts or like shot, like move to camera 2, move to camera 3. You have 1 minute, 30 seconds, 15 seconds, go to the next thing. It's a lot going on just like in general. So there was certainly a learning curve that came with it because I had never done television before.
Sure.
But because it was every day, well, I would have a week of hosting. The way the schedule worked was you'd have a week of prep, a week of hosting, and a week off. So that cycle would repeat and repeat. But it meant that like you were really getting reps in every day. So you got a lot of practice. And we had some guests come through when we were based in Philadelphia, which is where you came in. And Dan Zanes, who's an incredible kids musician, came through with Sonia de los Santos. Lori Berkner would come by, who was fantastic. But when we got to 30 Rock, and we got to New York for the last 3 years of my time on the show, they would bring anyone who was coming through to do the Today Show or the Tonight Show would oftentimes get like pushed onto our show too. So they'd come by either to do a pre-tape or to do the show live. So like one of my absolute favorite memories from a live guest appearance on Sunny Side Up was I used to do this detective bit because I'm obsessed with detectives. We can get more into that later. I would do this Carly and Chica's detective agency thing. And we had the opportunity for Mariska Hargitay from Law and Order to come on our show. So we built this whole like detective bit with her and we did it. We ended up doing it live and she was late. So I remember she shows up. We have 7 minutes to rehearse what we're supposed to do. And granted, the segment's only going to be 3 minutes long, but still, she just shows up like wind blown from the street and it's like, and everybody says like her reputation is that she is the kindest and she is the kindest. She just looked at me and she's like, I trust you. Tell me what to do. I was like, oh my God. Okay. I was like, you're the detective from the FBU fruits and vegetables unit and we're solving a mystery and just like follow my lead. She's like, I got it. And we went live and the two of us were like so charged because it's like, you're just meeting people and you're getting thrown onto live television, not to do an interview, but to do like a bit. Like we're in character a little bit. And so it was, I mean, just that kind of energy though is my absolute favorite thing where you're flying by the seat of your pants. You like can only prepare so much because you actually don't know what's going to happen once it's go time. I live for that. So they were good times.
Isn't it funny you talking about that with celebrities? I got to work with a lot of different celebrities with Barney and they change when they're in the kids world. It's amazing. One, you find out they're really parents, and so they love it so much because of their kids and that interaction. But it's so much fun to work with celebrities with kids. Obviously with a big purple dinosaur.
My goodness.
But same with you, right? You're working with Chica, and it's really interesting. What was some other stories that you had working with celebrities in the kid world?
Yeah, I mean, Chica is she's such a delightful character that she really put people at ease. Because I'd say that there were two types of celebrities that would come through. Either a celebrity who like has kids and had either seen the show or like understood kind of the vibe of what we were doing, or someone that has like never done children's television, like has never spoken to a puppet before and would be like afraid. And so then it's on us to like kind of like set them at ease and like help them understand like it's just like talking, it's basically like you're talking to a kid. But I remember we had John Hamm come and he came, he had to come early. We didn't do it live. It was like 6 a.m. And I remember a bunch of people from like The Office came down to the studio just to stop by. I was like, oh, you're just stopping by at 6 a.m. Okay. But John Hamm was so funny. He's like, the two of us are getting our makeup done. And I'm just like, what is my life? Like, I got this like puppet friend that I'm going to hang out with. And John Hamm. And first of all, he's looking in the mirror and he's just like, don't ever get old. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You're like objectively like one of the most handsome human beings on the planet. But he's like, how do I do this? He's saying to me, he's like, how do I do this? Like, just like go in there and like, what? Like, be silly. What do I do? And I was like, first of all, I just can't believe you're asking me a question. But I'm like, you just go in and you have fun, be yourself, and just play with us. Just meet us where we are, and that's all. Like, you don't have to change your voice or like put on too much of like you don't have to do too much extra. Just be present and listen, and that'll be enough. So it was really fun. The other absolute best person to work with was Kate McKinnon from SNL. She and I did this like a bit where we were both really in character as these like fashion designers, and she came in, had read the script, which like not a lot of people have the time to read a script if we send them one, and she just was like getting such a kick out of Chica, and she's an improviser, so she was like absolutely playing with us, playing with the kids, and it was just fun to be able to offer you know, for the parents, like an extra treat when there's an extra person on, but the idea that we were a show that had other friends, it's just nice to bring other friends on. You know, Barney, you had a whole cast of kids that could play with each other, and kids at home could watch them socializing and playing pretend. And it's nice to be able, like, we were a slim show in that you mostly had one host and a puppet on at the same time. But actually, as the show went on, the hosts would get to be on each other's weeks more often to kind of fill out that family experience of like, we're all friends, we're all here together. So it was nice that guests gave us the opportunity to do that.
Well, you know, it's so funny you say, talking about the John Hamm, it really is about authenticity, because kids can tell. They can tell, and you just got to go have fun, let go. You know, it was easy being silly, you know, big purple dinosaur costume, but I mean, it really is. It's the truth with this, is you just let loose and have fun, and let go of all that stuff. Who cares if your hair's out of or whatever when it comes to kids, you know?
That's something that I actually loved about the fact that we were live, is that things would go wrong all the time. And I always liked that, because I felt like it empowered not just kids, but adults to like understand that things go wrong sometimes, and you fail, and that's okay. And not everything is going to be perfect. Not everything has to be perfect. So the more opportunities we had, either to like consciously write in times where Chica would not know how to do something or get frustrated, we always wanted to give Chica as a character and the puppeteers that were performing her the opportunity to like be frustrated or get something wrong or try something again. But then as performers, like beyond that, it's a live show. So like, I remember one time Chica and I were making like a smoothie, and I made the hugest deal out of how loud it was going to get as soon as I turned the smoothie on. And I'm trying to like model for kids and parents, like how to help kids be okay with a loud sound. And like, I make this whole big production out of it. I go to press the button and nothing happens because I hadn't plugged it. Like, and during the commercial break, I had unplugged it and didn't plug it back in. So it just like didn't have, it was just like not plugged in. So Chica and I are both like, cool. And I think I just said to the grownups, I was like, it's cool. So I didn't plug it in. So we'll come back after the commercial and we'll try this again. And for parents to be able to see that very real moment of like, I thought I knew what I was doing, and I got it wrong. I think it's a nice thing to be able to show.
Absolutely. So we jumped so far ahead here. Let's jump back for a second, and let's talk about how you got started. How did you get into acting and ultimately working with kids?
Yeah. So I grew up doing community theater. It was a really important part of my upbringing. I did it with my siblings. I'm the oldest of 7, and all 7 of us moved through the Wilmington Drama League and did all kinds of shows there. So I felt out what it was like to be a part of a community performing experience. And then I ended up studying theater in college. And when I graduated, I stayed in Chicago. I went to Northwestern University and stayed in the city of Chicago, and was planning on acting. And so I was auditioning and doing improv. I studied at Improv Olympic and Second City. And I needed day jobs. I say jobs because every person that graduates with a theater degree in Chicago ends up working like minimum of 3 jobs in those early years. So my main gig was working at an early childhood enrichment center called Bubbles Academy. So I started out as like an event assistant, and then basically worked my way up to leading like these kind of adventure birthday parties on the weekends. And then during the week I would teach classes. So I would teach preschool prep and creative movement, and like really little like walker classes, crawler classes, like just I basically after 4 years, I was there for 4 years. I taught like almost every class there was to teach. And I ended up like, finding my way as a songwriter, because I would have all these songs that I would want to sing in class, and I get kind of bored of the ones we were using. So I just write my own, which was really fun. But then I had a couple other jobs also. I worked for a company called Barrel of Monkeys, which would take stories written by kids in elementary schools and then we'd do these writing workshops in the schools, get the kids to write a bunch of stories, and then we'd go back to the schools and perform them as sketches and songs. And there's a sister company in New York called the Story Pirates, which I'm also a part of here. So I was teaching like littles. I was doing these like writing workshops with slightly older kids. And I was a DJ for Radio Disney. So I was doing, it was sort of like being a glorified bar mitzvah DJ. I'd like show up at an event and be like, okay, who knows the moves to the High School Musical songs? Dance with me and I'll give you a DVD, or like Jonas Brothers tickets. Did get to meet the Jonas Brothers. That is another story.
Cool.
But those were like my 3 main jobs out of college. And I sort of was working a bunch of different skill sets at once and auditioning for plays, being an actor. And at a certain point I was like burning out on working so many jobs and not making enough money as an actor, because like I got some great roles in some plays, but it just like, it wasn't enough money to live. So I was like, all right, I think I have to reorganize how I'm putting myself into the world. Like, what do I like to do? What am I good at? Where is there a need? And I was like, maybe I got to lean more into this hosting thing. And I was like, maybe I'll move to California and try to like be like on-air radio talent for Radio Disney. I kind of walked through that. And as I was sort of transitioning in my mind to like more intentional like host pursuits, this audition came up for Sunny Side Up. And I remember looking at the ask for what they needed for the audition. And I was like, this is such a weird combination of everything I'm already doing. How is this job even real? And the job was out of Philadelphia, and I grew up right outside of Philadelphia in Wilmington, Delaware. So I was like, I mean, if I'm going to leave Chicago, which I never thought I would, I was like, I guess it's okay to go back, like essentially move home for a little bit, or like go to a place that's kind of familiar. So let me see. And I auditioned. I went on tape, and then I flew to Philly for an audition, for a callback. And then I got the job and relocated. I moved to Philadelphia and started working that was the Sunny Side Up audition.
Sure.
Also didn't realize that I'd be writing for the show. And it's like every week it was just me and the puppeteer, who was also a producer, watching all the shows that were going to air during the block and writing content for it. Like I didn't even realize that was going to be part of it. And it ended up being this unbelievably fortunate, a grad degree essentially in kids media, because I watched so many episodes of Barney, of Super Y, of Tree Fu Tom, Play With Me Sesame, Noddy's Adventures in Toyland, Detective Noddy. Like, I mean, just years worth of programming, and then was able to like watch them from the perspective of how can this be made how can this be like enhanced by the thing that we do? How can I take what I'm seeing in these shows and turn them into something playable that kids and families can do? So that's sort of like the long journey of it.
Yeah, it's so funny. A couple things. Because I learned this myself. I was a musician coming out of college, had no idea, what was next. And long story, but found out about this purple dinosaur. And this was before the Barney and Friends. And I jumped in. And yeah, sure. And I could be in a costume and all that. And I did it for a while. And then they said, can you dance? Sure, I can dance. I can't dance. So my mom actually taught me the routine and taught me she taught me all the choreography. I did a 30-minute sing-along all over the country. And I was in my parents' garage. I made a fake costume, and my mom taught me how to do bell kicks and 360s and all that stuff. And so,
is your mom a dancer?
Yeah, she was a dancer for 70 years.
Oh,
Yeah, I just told him I could do it. And I showed her the video, and she goes, oh, yeah, I can teach you all those things. And they had no idea, because it's kind of what you have to do, right? When you're getting into this industry, you just say, sure, I can do that. And then you figure out how to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the age old fake it till you make it. It's a real thing. We're so much more capable than we think we are.
Yes.
I love that. I love the idea. I'm seeing it as like a training montage of your mom like doing like 100 push-ups, and you're like right next to her, like in your homemade costume, like doing, I don't know why it's push-ups. It's also kicks and turns. But I mean, I said this to you before and I say it again. I have like so many questions about your whole life story that I'm always curious about people's paths and how they fall into or intentionally go after the things that they end up doing. But it already sounds like your story is so good.
Well, thank you. And it's part of why I started Purple Rose, because I wanted to hear people's stories. I'm so fascinated because everyone has these interesting stories on how they got into this. And I was telling the dancing story a little bit because of you and the fact that you really weren't a musician, right? And all of a sudden now you're singing and playing songs.
No, that is the thing. I remember when I came home from college after I graduated and I was at like hanging out with everybody at a bar, like everybody's home for Thanksgiving or something. And it's like, oh, what are you doing? And I remember I was like, I'm trying to be an actor. And I wish I could remember when I stopped saying trying to and just said, I am. And the musician title has been so much harder for me to accept, even though I have written so many songs for Bubbles Academy, for Sunny Side Up, for Snug's House. I've like written, I like collaborated with Tim Kubart, who was another host of Sunny Side Up, who's an unbelievable musician. I worked on 2 of his albums with him, and like, it's like, I think I'm a musician, but it's like a scarier thing for some reason to like use those words, because I always feel like I'm just playing, just making stuff up. But I think that's all anybody's doing, actually.
Well, and I think that's why it works so well.
Yeah. And it was
kids.
nice, like to try. Like I remember when I first got hired at Bubbles Academy, once I got kind of good enough at the guitar to be able to play, they had me doing this weekly set of music at Whole Foods for all the like babies and stuff there. And my first day, I like had this set that was like the Beatles and Justin Bieber and like songs that I thought would be fun. And the kids, I mean, could not have cared less. Like they were climbing the mic stand, ripping the guitar out of my hands. I think I said this before, and it was chaos. And then I was like, wow, what didn't work about that? And did a little bit more research and listened to some of the people who really know what they're doing, like Lori Berkner, and realized that preschool music has to be interactive. If you, for a certain type of show or performing, it's got to be interactive. And there are ways to build in like fun, playable cues into your music. So I had all this practice at Bubbles Academy, like writing music with preschoolers actually in front of my face, being able to clock, here's when they're not paying attention, here's when they're moving with me, here's what they need to stay engaged, so that by the time I got to Sunny Side Up, and it was like we were writing music that we hoped kids would be like interacting with, I had all this like experience of like, okay, I remember when I lost them, I remember when I had them, let me apply some of those things to that, which was really fun. And then Tim's music, like working on his album, felt more like real musicianship, because we were building an album that was like definitely meant to be interactive when he goes out and performs it, but it's also music you can just listen to in the car, like music that feels like good pop music for kids. So like observing his writing process with his collaborators and the musicians he brought in and being able to write for that was like stretched a brand new muscle. So that has been the most unexpected journey out of all this. Ever since I was a kid, I was like, oh, I want to be a performer, but like musician, what?
It's the interaction. I mean, that's what I saw with Barney for all those years. I did sing-alongs with Barney all over the country for 5 years before I went on tour for 5 years. I've never seen anything like it. We're doing Airplane and Mr. Knickerbocker.
Oh yes.
And I mean, every kid knows a 30-minute show. And, obviously I know what's coming up, and it's the coolest thing because, they all react to, as soon as I Love You comes on, and they all start hugging and kissing and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I think that doing the live and then getting you on TV is such an important part of it, because it helps you with the improv stuff and just understanding your audience at home. What was it like for you, starting out at Whole Foods? What did you learn from doing those Whole Foods shows with the kids?
I think Yeah, if I had not spent 4 years at Bubbles Academy, I don't think I would have gotten the Sunny Side Up job. I wouldn't have known what to do, because I think it's so easy to create an idea of what kids programming should be
Mm-hmm.
as an adult that's like away from kids. But
Sure.
if you're actually playing with kids and performing for them, it's so surprising what they react to, and then you can start to understand, like, okay, what in my natural toolbox of like silly things and delight and performing meets them where they're at with what they are interested in and available for. So like, how can we make something together that feels special? And Bubbles Academy was like the way that I got to feel that out. So being able to like play around with different songs and even like experiences. Like we would do superhero classes and princess classes, and we'd write these like adventures for the kids to go on. Or like we would do a train song. We'd put them all in laundry baskets and roll them around race them around the room, like little things like that. It was like it was so fun to spend every week really figuring out how can I see this audience and make something for them and with them. And I still try and do that in everything I make now, but I'm not around kids, or for most of the time that I was on Sunny Side Up, I wasn't around kids. So I was just like pulling from that experience. Although we would occasionally do like classroom visits for our own professional development and a few live events here and there. But that's actually been a really powerful piece of this exact moment in time. Is everything has just moved online. A lot of my friends who are teachers or performers, their classes and their gigs have just moved online.
Right.
And so they're calling me and other friends up to like guest on each other's shows. And some of them are like classes that are happening on Zoom where I can see the families. And it's been so fun to feel connected to the audiences again. Because it's really hard to build out a tour or a class in person and on your own.
Right.
But it's easy to go live on Instagram and be, oh my gosh, George in Texas is watching and he's making it too. Because when I do Tube Town, I go live on Facebook and Instagram at the same time.
Oh, okay.
And I read comments from both feeds and I almost go insane, but it's worth it because I get to see what everybody's up to.
Sure.
But you know, I mean, I came from the theater. Like the energy of a live audience is A, so powerful, and B, so concrete. And I think we talked about this last time. What I love about performing for kids is it can be like there's like research and testing involved in making things for kids. So you can definitively understand cognitively what works and what doesn't, so that you can always be like serving the best possible version of whatever you're making. It's why Blue's Clues worked. Like they tested every element of that and knew that it was working, and then committed to the pieces that went well in testing. I mean, That's not the only reason. The reasons why Blue's Clues works are that Steve Burns is a genius and Angela Santamero is a genius, and all these things. But I love knowing that I can receive feedback from the audience, and they are always right. These kids are always right. If they're laughing, it's funny. If they're not laughing, it's not funny. That's the end of the story.
Absolutely. I got so much of my movements and the things I did from touring and performing for 10 years.
Yeah.
I went to hospitals after hospital, morning shows. I mean, all over the world for 10 years. And I learned that, I would go into these hospitals and there'd be a kid and there'd be doctors and all these adults, and they would all disappear except Barney and the child. The child would only see that big purple dinosaur. Everyone else was gone. And it would be the simple, we could play for 30 minutes and it'd be a wiggle of the tail, a little hop. And I'd pick up and wiggle my toes, and it gave them kind of permission to be silly, and we would just be both silly. Obviously, a purple dinosaur can be silly right there. But all of those things I learned, what they reacted to, what they loved. I was, I was a 23-year-old kid when I started this. I had no idea. And
my God.
I just learned from the kids over those years what worked and what didn't work, so that when I did the TV show, man, I was filled up with all these things that I knew they reacted to.
Yeah.
I think since we've been home, it's been fascinating me so I've been watching lots of musicians. I just love music. and they're struggling with the fact that they're looking at a screen. They're not used. They're like, I hope you're watching. I hope people are enjoying this and that. But I think for kid performers, we were in front of audiences so I know exactly what works. It's okay for me to, wiggle my toe or do all those things because I know the sillier, the better.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. I think there's this moment in time is turning everybody into a non-camera host. And it can be, I remember the very beginning of Sunny Side Up, it was really hard to ask a question and leave space for the answer or to like have silence at all. Like if we were working on a craft and they would say over and over, like, it's okay to not fill every second with talking, like leave space for, the audience to lean in. And I think that a lot of people are feeling that out right now. Two of my sisters are teachers. One teaches 8th grade English, one teaches 2nd graders. And the one who's an 8th grade English teacher has been making videos for her classroom. And it's just hard to just be like talking to a camera with nobody there to check in or nod or see your message being received. Even like the first time I went live with TubeTown, I was like, oh yeah, it's real weird to be all by yourself.
Right.
But I think that the learning curve, like people are getting more comfortable. My sister, the first video she made for her students versus like the 4th video, it was like she had taken, it felt like she'd like taken a class in the middle. She's suddenly like was so comfortable, was adding all these fun bells and whistles and just like loosening up. It takes reps. Everything takes practice. And with this moment in time, it feels like there's such an immediacy, like everything is an emergency, but we got to remember it's a marathon, not a sprint. And we're going to be here for a little while longer. So I'm like happy that people are sort of sinking into, I don't have to have all the bells and whistles on day one. It's not going to be perfect. We're going to have to redo the interview. Like my lighting is going to be whatever it is because I'm in my apartment. And the larger message of like the permission to practice and the permission to evolve, like kind of in a more integrated way is actually pretty powerful. So I think it's an okay lesson to be learning.
Well, and the other one is how much this is needed.
Yeah.
And I've told this story before, but I did a hospital appearance, and at the end of it, they told me that I was going into a burn unit. I was going to see this little girl, and Barney was the only one that was going to go in. And I think most people watching Purple Rose know that there was a body and a voice. So there was another actor doing the voice, and I was doing the body. Well, when we did a lot of these hospital appearances, there was no voice. So it was just Barney. And so I go in this room, and there's this little girl, and you can tell that a lot of her body has been burned. And she immediately gets this huge smile on her face, and she starts singing the I Love You song. And I'm doing the movements and doing everything I can to hold my emotion in. But I had learned earlier that Carrie's gone, right? It's just about Barney. It's just about that purple dinosaur. That's what they want to see. Yeah. And so I'm doing the movements and blowing kisses and the hug and all that. And at the end, I blow a kiss to her, and she says, Barney, I love you. And I walk out of the room, and of course I got very emotional, and I had time to think about that later. And what I realized, I never saw any sadness, right? And I didn't treat her any different than that smiling kid. And I think right now we need this more than ever. We all know what's going on, and it can get very depressing if you sit and you think about this.
Yeah.
But laughter and joy and love and being silly is what's so important. And, I think a lot of us in kid entertainment have seen that and kind of prepares us for a little bit. Let's just have fun. I understand what's going on, and I understand all that, but let's just have fun. And things like what you're doing, I think is just so important because we get it. We get what's going on, but we just need to have fun.
Yeah. And having some fun and leaning into joy and allowing yourself to laugh doesn't mean that you're pretending like the suffering isn't happening. It doesn't mean that you are suddenly like an irresponsible member of society. It is so that you can stay like that. You have to laugh, and you have to let yourself, and just like you have to let yourself have bad days, you have to let yourself have good days. And I think sometimes for some people, even for me, sometimes it can be actually easier to be sad or easier to be upset than it can be to like, do I dare let myself laugh and experience joy right now? I mean, my family, we did a Zoom call last night for Easter, and we did a family talent show. That was like we did like an Easter talent show on Zoom. So everybody had like to prepare something, and we were just, I mean, we've been on like screens talking to each other over the last couple of weeks, but it's been a lot of like, how are you?
Right.
How are you?
Right.
And like my one sister, her talent is this bit she does where she just walks around the kitchen spinning and opening cabinets. That's literally it. That's the bit. That's the joke. So for like a minute, she's just on the camera, like twirling in her kitchen and opening cabinets. And all 9 of us plus husbands and a nephew are just like belly laughing, like for a minute, forgetting everything that's going on. And I mean, anything like, yes, as people that make content for kids and families, I'm hoping to offer that if they're like watching me, but I also hope, that's why I like TubeTown, because I'm like, here, make some tubes and then go play with them and go make yourselves laugh later. So sometimes you have to like teach parents how to play with their kids. I remember that from teaching preschool. They'd be like, well, I'm going to sit here and you're going to play with my kid. And I'd be like, oh, no. We're all going to play together.
Right.
Because they have to see that you can do this too. And you have to see that you can do this too. You can sing with your kid. You can be silly with your kid. We all need it. It's good. It's good medicine.
Well, I learned that on the road too, because, I think these parents came to those Barney shows thinking they were just taking their child and had no idea their child wanted them to fly like an airplane and do all that stuff too. It was important. Yeah. And from doing Purple Roads, I get all these messages of, boy, I went kicking and screaming at those shows, I get them from dads. And then they're like, I am so thankful for that. Once I got there and really saw what it was about. So
I had the VHS tape of one of the Barney live shows. It was like an old tape, but I had like this memory of like the kids coming out and introducing themselves, and like I can see the outfits they were wearing, and I can hear Mr. Knickerbocker. Is like it's a real thing. It's a real part of my childhood. Like you were like that purple dinosaur. I had a Barney backpack, and I thought that it was going to come to life. I really did. I was like, I know it's not the real toy, but it's a backpack. It's close enough, right? I was like, come on. Oh.
I love it. I presume that was Radio City.
Oh yeah, that's what it was.
Live. Yeah, that was my stage debut with the Mop in the Bucket.
So that was you?
Yeah, I was in the. So there was 2 of us.
Okay.
David Joyner did the main show, but I was with the Mop in the Bucket. I don't know if you remember, up on the balcony, and then Barney had a feather boa that he ran out with, and he delivered peanuts. Those were all mine. So I was like the stunt.
Oh my gosh.
I did all the costume stuff.
That's brilliant. What a journey. Like, it's like you went through, like anybody in any profession who like starts, like comes in through the mailroom and then works their way up. Like you did the tour, you did like every element of it. And it like you had such a long career with that dinosaur and with kids, like generations. It's remarkable. I mean, what a gift. What a gift.
It absolutely. I always tell people I'm the richest person on this planet, not because of financial, but because what those kids of 22 years gave to me and taught me the lessons of when they're sick and being able to smile and unconditional love. And it's incredible. I never thought of being kids entertainment, but I wouldn't have wanted to be anywhere else because of the gifts that you get. And I can see you smiling and how much you love it. It's obviously affected your life as well. Yeah. So Sunny Side Up, and then you went to Snug's house, and then the Big Fun Crafty Show. What were those experiences like? Yeah,
so they basically sunsetted Sprout and Sunny Side Up and were reborn as the network Universal Kids and the show Snug's House. And Snug's House, we got a puppet named Snug, who's a dog who can talk. So that gave us a little more flexibility and like expansion with like the emotional stuff that we were able to cover on the show. We just got like a little, like it expanded our like literal vocabulary a little bit. Although I will say Chico was always saying real things. And like, if you listened a lot, I mean, I always could understand her because I've worked with them for so long, but she was always saying real things. Anyway, Snug has the facility for language, which means it's like, it's easier to move through some different themes. And the show was pre-taped, which meant we could just be a little more nimble with certain things that we were doing. But it runs as an interstitial on Universal Kids still. And I got to write, the writing changed. For Sunny Side Up, we would basically write like beats and then just follow the beats. Like we weren't really scripting because it just like, that was the flavor of the show. It was like, here's the shape of what we're going to do, and we're going to trust each other, and we're going to go. For Snug's House, we elevated a little bit more. So things like could be a little more like specific, and like the bits could be a little more like if you go to my Instagram, or if you look on the Universal Kids YouTube page, you can see some clips from Snug's House, and things are just a little more like we do like genre parodies, or we like play with camera angles. We just got to have a little more fun with the form, which was really cool. And got to write some more music and make some more music videos for Snug's House, which was great. So that show is still running. And then the Big Fun Crafty Show was kind of a more traditional, like long form show. It's an arts and crafts reality competition show for kids. So each episode we have 3 teams of 2 kids compete with the same craft challenge. They get 2 minutes to run to this wall of supplies, which is like every kid's dream come true. They would lose their minds. I'd be like, you got 2 minutes, grab what you can. And they'd be like, ah! And they'd be like knocking stuff over, and it was just a big mess. And then I got to kind of guide them, but like mostly just kind of help them birth their own ideas, like never trying to lead them in any way, but allow them to create whatever they wanted to create, kind of help them work through moments of frustration, or like sometimes they would get stuck and I was kind of there to nudge them along. But it was super fun, and we made 40 episodes in 6 weeks in Toronto with an amazing team that was really well versed in reality TV. So we would shoot 2 episodes a day, and that was bananas, because like it's one thing to go for Sunny Side Up. It was like you're live for 3 hours a day, which is a long time, but it was like it kind of flew by. And then Snug's House, we had regular like longer shoot days where we would just bank a bunch of segments. Each segment was only like 3-4 minutes long. But this, it was like we would shoot for like 4 hours and then take a lunch break, and we do 1 episode in 4 hours, and then the next episode after lunch in 4 hours. And it was like crazy, but good, but really good.
Yeah, it's, but all those things prepare you.
Yeah.
Right? Don't you feel that all those different things prepare you for the next challenge?
Yeah. And I can't say much more about this now, but I spent the last 8 months working on a different TV show that's going to be out there'll be more information on my social media in the next coming weeks, hopefully.
And we'll be promoting you like crazy. So we're going to have all of that there so everyone can find where you are and what you're doing.
Thank you. But that show was totally different than Sunny Side Up, totally different than the Big Fun Crafty Show. But you're right. All of those things totally prepared me for the job for this show, which I'm so excited for it to be in the world. It's for slightly older kids, and it was a really special project. And I wish I could say more, but I can't.
That's okay. We like teasers. We like teasers. So we talked about this last time, and I definitely want to get to it this time. We talked about how you kind of started, but let's talk about how you really started as a kid. The things that you were doing as a kid.
Yes. So as a kid, I'm the oldest of 7 kids, which meant I had this like squad around me all the time. So I would do a lot of like, we would play together in like, we'd make plays and do performances all the time. And my so the things that I watched and loved as a kid were obviously Barney, and then Reading Rainbow. I loved Reading Rainbow, and I would recreate Reading Rainbow in my bedroom. I'd like get all my books together and do the ending part where he'd like recommend a book. So I would be like, well, I have books to recommend because I loved reading. So I would just line up my stuffed animals and like pull out a book and be like, well, don't take my word for it. Go to your local library. So I really wanted to be one of those kids. But thing that was my number one favorite show of all time was Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego. That show meant everything to me. And I said this before and I will say it again. Here's why. The kids on that show, it's like a geography game show. And those kids were like, they'd introduce themselves at the beginning and they were always like such beautiful, nerdy kids. And I was a beautiful, nerdy kid. I had so many like interests and curiosities and I was always like investigating things and like watching other kids on TV who had really specific interests talk about them. I was just like elated to see them on television.
Right.
And then just the whole premise of the show and the fact that you'd have Lynn Thigpen as the chief giving the gumshoes like their mission. I mean, I love her. I love her in that show. I love her in Godspell. I think she was a fantastic performer. But I just thought that she was like, she is the voice of authority, like, man. And then you've got Rockapella offering music and you've got Greg Lee holding the whole thing together. And there were so many different elements of the gameplay. When I look back, it's like, it was so big. And like, I forget in like the second or third season at the end, the kids would be like running around trying to like put this like big post on a map. So when I was 8 years old, I recreated an episode of Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego in my basement. I had my two the siblings that were old enough to participate at that time. Let's see, I was 8, so Justine was probably 6, and my brother was like 5. They were the contestants, and everything. I tried to make everything big. I built them these like little podiums where they had to like play from. I built out a map for them to like run around, and like we used like blocks that I had like taped together to be just different set pieces, whatever. And then the family watched, and there's actually, it's all on tape. I put it on my Instagram a while ago. But it's just funny to think about like that at 8 years old, I was like playing out what I was seeing on TV, these things that I love to watch that I wanted to recreate at home. And then now as an adult, that's like what I'm doing with my life. It's like, I think of the kids that were playing doctor when they were 8 and now they grew up to be doctors. It's like the way we play as kids matters. It matters.
It does matter. And, you know, an interesting part, I think, as kids, we all have these creativity. And then somewhere a lot of them lose it or put it away, I think is probably the best way to there today. I think the encouragement to stay creative. You know, I was lucky I came from a family like that. Or, you know, I mean, you can imagine when I told my parents I was a purple dinosaur. You can just imagine my dad was like, you know what? You know, but he was supportive of it, and they came to see the show, and you know, didn't know what to think when I came busting out on stage, but they supported all of that, and they kind of trusted me, and I think that's so important for kids today.
Yeah, for sure. I feel very lucky that my parents were encouraging and supportive of my choices and my career path, and trusted me a lot.
Right.
And I do think it's why when I'm doing things for kids, I'm so conscious of the fact that I'm not only like offering these kids an invitation to play, but I'm offering their parents an invitation to play too, because there's like creativity and play can become such a like cringy word for adults. And I don't know why that is. And I sometimes take it for granted that because a lot of my friends are performers or improvisers or people that like just live to go and be creative and play, that's not something that everybody's friends and family support. It's not something that every like office supports.
Sure.
And so I have like a whole other like life purpose mission statement where I'm like, I want to get everybody to accept the idea of play as something that just means engaging with the ability to imagine things that you didn't think were possible or take risks. It's so important. And we do lose that, I think, when we're adults. We lose our ability. But there is something happening right now with what is going on in the world that is demanding creativity from people that did not think that they were creative. For families who have 2 working parents and 3 kids and no childcare, they are inventing systems of logic right now. They are inventing schedules. They're inventing games. They're being pushed beyond what they thought they were capable of. And that's always where, that's why Sunny Side Up felt so electric to me, because we never had enough time and we never had enough resources.
Right.
And like, that's the only way something magical ever occurs.
Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah. And it's so interesting you say that, because what's happened is a lot of the rules have changed. The way society was, a lot of it has changed. And I think you see a lot of these creative people, you know, you start seeing a few musicians get online, and next thing you know, they're doing it. And all these different things. And, you know, you see it with teachers and how they're teaching, and they had to just kind of throw all that out.
Yeah.
And find a new way to interact with kids. I think it's fascinating what's happened. And out of everything, right? Out of the bad comes good. And I think there's been a lot of good that's come out of this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the Mr. Rogers look for the helpers, and the things walking, you know, when I do walk in the neighborhood with a mask and keep my distance, but seeing like pictures in the windows that kids are making, it's like, it really, like, I feel like I get teary-eyed every single time I walk around the neighborhood at the like little glimmers of hope that are around. Oh, it's wild.
We were outside with the sidewalk chalk.
Yeah.
Just drawing out in front of the house, the kids and everyone yesterday. And it was just, there was a creativity again. It didn't matter. Just color something. Just have fun. We're outside. We're doing this together, and we're having fun.
Yeah.
And you see that. You see the neighborhood where everyone's doing that. And I think it's so cool. All right, so I got to talk about it while we're here. The music part of it. First of all, I know you've got that ukulele there. I think everyone's got to see it. I love it.
So here's my ukulele. It's got an eyeball on it. As it should. Yeah, right, as it should. Because I've been using this on Tubetown. I do a little like a little theme song in the beginning and a goodbye song at the end. And because I played the ukulele a lot on Sunny Side Up, but it actually wasn't mine. It belonged to the show. Okay. So I only recently got my very own ukulele. I got this on the Big Island of Hawaii, which is a place I've been to several times and is like a very, very special place to me. So I was like, my most recent trip, I was like, it's time for me to like get a ukulele here on the Big Island that I can take with me. I also have a blue guitar that's very special, but it's far away, so I'm not gonna grab it. But yeah, ukulele, it's very portable. I highly recommend, if you are at home in quarantine right now, get yourself a ukulele. It's the easiest. It really is.
So do you remember the first song that you wrote?
Oh my gosh.
Not to put too much pressure on you.
The first song that I wrote.
One of the first songs.
Oh, wow. Because I'm trying to think back to Bubbles, because I wrote songs for Bubbles, and I actually don't know if I can think of
all right, so the earliest one.
Okay.
That you can remember.
Let's see. I think so there was a song I wrote for Sprout that was called Wave to the People in Your Town. And okay, wait, let me see if I can give you a piece of that. Okay. And then I have another one that was like what I would think of as my first hit for Sprout that felt like a successful one, but that it wasn't for the ukulele. But this was the first acoustic song for Sunny Side Up was Wave to the People in Your Town. Wave. I can't think of what the next chord is. Wave really fast, wave really slow, wave to say hello. And we all waved together. It was really sweet. I can't remember the chords, but I wrote that for Sunny Side Up. And then I wrote a song called Numbers in the Ocean, which we did behind a beat. And the hook was, so many numbers in the ocean. Get your body in motion. So many numbers in the ocean. Now let's count to 1. Check this shark with his toothy grin. Oh, look, he's got 1 dorsal fin. 1. Now put your fins up and swim around like this. So many numbers in the ocean. Get your body in motion. So many numbers in the ocean. That was like my first favorite thing that I wrote for Sunny Side Up.
I love that you can do different genres of music too.
Thanks.
I love that. And I think you probably found that kids respond to that.
Yeah.
So what different styles have you done?
So, it was funny because for Sunny Side Up, we'd be writing each week for theme weeks. So like I remember one spring week, we would start either with start with genre or
Sure.
we'd start with theme. So
Okay.
for one spring week, I remember thinking I want to do something that feels like the like kind of like a Motown, like horns. Like I want to hear like the horns coming out, like it's like a top down driving jam, like if you're driving in a convertible. And so I went into the audio producer and I was like, here are the horns that I hear. And then I picked out like acoustically, here's like the vibe. But that we like started from a sort of Motown horns place. And then actually I've done a couple of like Motown-y kind of vibes. And then a lot of times I'll go just like real pop, like something that feels like if I'm listening to a pop song that I really like, I'll borrow a couple elements from it and try to throw that in. Or like, oh my gosh, when I discovered Hamilton, that affected my writing. I like had all these raps coming out that were like sort of musical. But then one of my favorite songs that I ever wrote for Sunny Side Up that we also did on Snug's house was a lullaby that just is like a lullaby. And that was for you. So that was a fun one. It was nice to have each track was produced every week, so I wasn't always tied to the guitar because I needed, or ukulele. A lot of the time I needed to do physical motion, so we'd have to build a track. So I got to walk into an audio producer and say, here's the genre, here's where I want the horns, here's where I want the piano, or it's also like collaborative.
Yeah.
But that was really, really fun.
Do you start with music or do you start with the lyrics?
It depends. It definitely depends. For the lullaby, and that was a collaboration. I was writing with the puppeteer, Scott McLennan, and he came to me and was like, we want to, like, it's a song about saying I love you in different languages. And he had like a couple words. It almost was like a poem. Like he had like 2 or 3 lines. And I was like, okay, give me that. And then I started singing through the words and adding more lyrics and then giving it some structure. So when it's collaborative, it can be kind of either way.
Right.
But a lot of times I'll just walk around my neighborhood and like sing into my phone. So things kind of come out together. But I think I usually do start with lyrics and then we'll get the music from there. But I remember, I wrote a song for Dad's Week. That's one of my favorite songs. It's very silly. It's Chica and I dressed as our dads. And the song is literally just, we're just a couple of dads. We're so rad. We're just dads. Like that's the chorus. We're just a couple of dads. But like I wrote out some like lyrics that were just like rhymes about stuff that dad does. Like dad does this, dad does that, dad does this. And then loaded it into the music later. So it depends.
So what have you learned? What's the biggest thing you've learned from kids? What's the biggest takeaway you've had from working with kids?
Such a big question. I have learned how to see the world fresh. Because the little ones especially, like they just got here. So they see the wonder in the simplest things in a way that we forget as adults.
Right.
But oh man, I'm going to burst into tears in a way that I have been remembering a lot lately. I went for a bike ride in Prospect Park yesterday and turned a bend. And then there's like this big pond. And I just like haven't seen water in a month. And usually I'm like on my bike or on the train and crossing the bridge and seeing water. And I hadn't seen water in so long and like burst into tears. And it's like, you watch a video of like a 2-year-old outside seeing rain for the first time and they're like so present and in it. And then like as an adult, you're just like, get this out of here, get my umbrella up. Or like, a kid that sees the beach for the first time. But I think this has been a lot's been taken away from us right now. And I mean, the fact that I can even get on a bike and go outside is an enormous privilege. And who knows, in a weekend, maybe that's going to be a thing I shouldn't do. But working with kids helps me to remember that like, every single thing is an opportunity to experience wonder, whether it's the food you're eating, whether it's looking at a plant outside, whether it's like finding out that when you make the same joke 10 times in a row, you can let it be funny every time. Like that's one of my favorite things about kids, that you can make the same joke 10 times in a row and it's funny all 10 times. Like I wish everybody could connect to that availability for comedy. So yeah.
And the importance of that, of just being silly.
Yeah.
It's been just so wonderful having you back on once again.
Thank you.
What do you want to leave us with?
Can I play you the lullaby?
Oh, please.
I think it feels like the one to share. If I mess up, then it's okay, because it's okay to mess up as a grown up. Okay. Because that's the other thing. I'm not a savant on these instruments, you know, I'm just a regular person. I just like it, you know, I'm just enthusiastic. Someday we'll go to France and see the Eiffel Tower's view. In French, I'll say je t'aime, but in English, say I love you. I love you, je t'aime. I love you, je t'aime. The ways I'll say I love you. The world we will see, but my words will be always of I love you. We'll stroll along the Great Wall of China and stop for a photo or two. In Mandarin, I'll whisper, "Wo I need," but for now, say I love you. I love you, wo I need. I love you, wo I need. The ways I'll say I love you. The world we will see, but my words will be always if I love you. I'll take you to Sweden to gaze at the sky, the northern lights dancing green and blue. In Swedish, I'll whisper, ja älskade, but for now, say I love you. I love you, ja älskade. I love you, ja älskade. The ways I'll say I love you. The world we will see, but my words will be always if I love you. Always if I love you, you know I mean it. Always I love you.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So check out Carly on Saturdays.
Yes, Saturday mornings, 11 a.m., Tube Town. And then check out the Big Fun Crafty Show and Snug's House on Universal Kids. And stick around for more. Oh, I also host a podcast called Don't Break the Rules that you can hear on Pinna. And that's an improv game show podcast for kids. It's so fun. It's like very silly. So all those things, check them out. Follow me on social media to stay up to date.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much. Remember to keep your eyes, ears, and your heart open, and you'll find your purple road. It's been such a blast, Carly.
Thank you, Carrie.
And remember to like and subscribe Purple Roads, and we'll see you next week. And thank you so much. I love you all.
Thank you.